So what did you say last night we wanted to talk about? What did we decide?
You wanted to talk about Lakewood. I wanted to talk
And you want
about
whatchamacallit, living, like off the grid
off
living.
the grid living. Yeah, kind of the same though, because like Lakewood could be, or any kind of society that you grow up that's closed, and then you're like, wait, I want to be independent and go off the grid. So that could show up in a lot of ways in your life, including leaving any system, because off the grid is off the system. So it's really the same thing if you think about it.
So off the grid for you symbolizes out of the system and like independence.
For sure.
Okay, and do you consider yourself currently off the grid?
No, I'm currently inside a house with air conditioning. That's connected to
Okay.
Rachelli. That's
I was gonna say off the grid, you can still have air conditioning, right?
yeah,
Otherwise, it's
but
not
this
gonna
is
work
like
out for me.
connected to the electric company. So like, no, I'm definitely on the grid right now, but in other ways I'm off the grid. Like if you look at the way I grew up, like me living out in some kibbutz in the middle of bumblefuck nowhere, it is kind of off the grid. But no, what I mean by off the grid is like being like really independent, like in all aspects, including the way you think about things and your like beliefs, and also just like physically being off the grid, like not being dependent on I don't know, electric companies, water companies, any kind of like things we could need.
Okay, and what's the concern? What's the concern about being dependent on one of these companies? Is it a concern, or is it just you don't want to give them your hard earned money? Like, what's the?
It's like, why should we? We can make it ourselves. Why shouldn't you make solar
You could,
electricity
or
when you
someone else
live
can
in
make
like
it,
a
and you can pay
freaking,
them for it.
and then you could be out wherever you want. You don't have to be like stuck inside of, let's say here in Israel, there's like very specific places that are for living in, or anywhere in the world. Like you kind of stuck living in the city when, a lot of us want to go live out on top of a mountain. So either you got to live without electricity or you make your own electricity, but either way you got to be off the grid. And I think the advantage of to leaving the city and living like urban life is like a healthier way of life for a lot of people, like clearing out even just the pollution, but also just the dependency on things, like getting back to nature, getting back to earth, getting out
But
of
I live on a
what this.
mountaintop, and we usually have electricity from Chavet Chashmal. Usually,
Yeah, it's also a mindset, like being off the grid's a mindset. It's like
right?
knowing that you are a sovereign being and you're independent, and then that could touch on like any fundamentalist or like way that you could grow up, that like it's like, no, you have to be like this. No, you don't. You could be however you want. You can live your life, find
Mochin
your
de
purpose.
Gadlus.
Huh?
Mochin de Gadlus in Kabbalah. That's what it's called.
Mochin de
A
gadlut.
expanded consciousness instead of Mochin de Katnus, which is restricted consciousness, which is like
Yeah,
you're dependent on other people and you can't really be yourself.
mamash.
That's what we mentioned also last night. The idea of people instilling fear in you. Part of the fear is that like you can't do it on your own and you need them, and it keeps you subdued and it keeps you dependent. So the dependency is really in your head, and then it manifests into the world. But it's really like you think that you need other people, like you don't really.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think actually, if you are really stuck inside of some kind of system, you, in a way, you do need the person. Like it's a big psychological trip to be able to get out of that. It takes a lot of work. So like there is a certain point where you really do need people because of this kind of conditioning. But if you're able to do like the work to get out of that, then I think that could lead to living, a more fulfilling life, a more happier life, more connected to your purpose and your center. And we all have our own purposes here on the world. We all have different missions to do. So um, for some people, it probably is part of their mission to be in a system, and for a lot of people that feel like free spirits, it could feel restricting. And it's good to know that there's other ways of life available. There's other
Right.
options. You aren't stuck.
On a certain level, you could say that was what Korach was arguing for.
Really?
Yeah, he was
Tell
telling
me
like
more.
Moshe Rabbeinu, like we don't need like a leader. Like we're all kikoleida kulam kedoshim. Like we're all holy. Uvetocham Hashem. We all have our own connection with God. Umatuetis nasu al kal Hashem. Like what do we need like somebody in charge for?
Yeah. See, like I hear that. I do. There is something to it, but then there's also something to remember, which is like and you see this a lot in like modern day spiritualism, where like everyone all of a sudden thinks they're a spiritual leader, and it is important to remember that there is a lot of work to do to become on a spiritual plane where you could lead people, or you could serve medicine, or you could be someone that people could come to for advice and things like that. Like we all definitely have our own wisdom, and everyone has a whole Torah inside of them to teach, but there's also ways of life and paths to follow to become, in different traditions, to become certain kind of leaders. So while I am all for anarchy, I think it is important to remember within spirituality and like holding space for others' processes, it's important to be responsible. And if you find inspiration in a certain way, in a certain medicine, in a certain meditation, in a certain Torah way or something, it's very, very necessary to follow that path in all your fullness and not be a hypocrite in any kind of way, and not like falsely lead people with your ego, which is very easy to do a lot of the time. Like we all have that inside of us, and you see that really rampant, like all these fake gurus or fake whatever it is. You see it in every area, that there's people that are like, oh, I did enough ayahuasca, now I can serve it, or I am a coach now, or whatever it is. So like there is freedom, but there is also like a sacred way to follow, to be a leader. It's like it's a big responsibility inside of yourself that you have to be
Right.
ready to take on in every aspect.
I saw an interesting Torah from Reb Nachman over Shabbat. That until now I always heard like the Lubavitch take on things. I think, and I apologize to anyone if I got this wrong, but what I've always heard is the Rebbe used to say, all you need in order to help somebody up the ladder is to be one rung above them.
Uh-huh.
Right? And there's like a certain truth to that. And Rabbi Nachman says that actually the lower you are, the higher your Rebbe needs to be. Because in order to drag someone out who's like all the way at the bottom, you need someone who really like knows how to lift, Obviously, I think there's truth to like both of them, but it was just an interesting take. And that's why he said like the Jews in Mitzrayim, who were like on such a low level, like the 49th level of Tumah, they needed like a Moshe Rabbeinu to get them out. They needed someone who was like so spiritual, so up there, so holding, who could help them on a really high level. And had it been on any lower level, they wouldn't have gotten out. Doesn't mean the person wouldn't have helped. Like I think they're both right. But
Yeah, we all have like, I think it's like the duality in a way, because we have both of these aspects in us. We have like our holy side, and we have our side that's like totally full of shit. So it's there's two ends of everything. But that does remind me in a way of something a teacher of mine taught me, was that in order to be a spiritual leader, you really have to go through like all of it. Like you have to be able to understand every single place that a person could be stuck in, and like especially in different ways of like shamanism that you'll find in South America. Like the path to become a shaman takes like 10-20 years, and you have to sit with whatever the medicine is that you want to serve, like millions of times, and you have to go through these things. You have to know every single place inside of you that's possible to get to, because we are all one. So if you know all of this in you, you're able to recognize it in someone else. And we know that like when we go through something, we're able to help other people that go through it as well. So it's like it's our responsibility. If we feel like we have the power to hold space for other people, we really have to go in deeply. We really have to hold space for ourselves, and we really have to do the inner work to be in our best self. obviously with compassion, always to be compassionate to ourselves and to all those around us, mirroring. But
Right.
to know we are warriors of our spirit. We're here to, like that book I was telling you about. It says that uh, we're all hunters. There's always a hunt going on inside of us and a prey. Now, either like the parasite in us, which is like the part of us that feeds on negative energy and feeds on junk and feeds on like darkness, could be the hunter and we could be the prey, or we could decide to be the hunter, and then we are always have to be aware of every time something comes up, and it's a lot of work, but it never ends. There's always new stuff going on, like we learned when we were younger, with Saddic's problems are way bigger than like what's it called, not problems, nisyonos are way bigger than anyone else's, because like when you're on a higher level, you have bigger challenges, and you see that, and it comes up in a lot of ways. It could come up from inside of you, it could come up with other people, it could come up with feeling like a faker. That's a big thing for a lot of people, feeling like a faker. You're like trying to get on your way and your brain's like, oh, you faker, oh, you're full of this, oh, you're still full of it. But like sometimes we could just take a second and like listen to that voice, be like, okay, where do you feel like you're being fake? Okay, send some good energy to that. Try to find the truth within you again. Find that center, find that spark in you that's trying to do good in the world, and then like feed that. And if there's a part of you that feels like you really aren't being good because of something else, then you change. You don't be sorry, you change. That's how life is.
Right. On a certain level, I think that's maybe the story of like Mitzrayim of Moshe Rabbeinu, that he left the palace and right away tried like helping out Klal Yisrael, tried like saving, he saw somebody hitting his friend, tried saving him and stuff like that, and Klal Yisrael really like reacted negatively, like someone snitched on him to the government. They couldn't handle the fact that like that this guy wanted to save them, wanted to help them. They were stuck in their gullus mindset. They couldn't handle the change. So Moshe Rabbeinu essentially left, he ran away, and he went into his own gullus. And it says right before the burning bush, he was on the outskirts of the desert. He was like, mamash, like as far out as can be, like in his own gullus. And then he had this like spiritual experience from externally, internally, whatever it is. I was thinking about it recently also, the burning bush, because we think of it as a miracle, so we always think of it as like, wow, it's not burning, like it's amazing, right? But it could be it's like the worst thing ever. Like, can you imagine an endless burning that doesn't end?
Yeah,
that never ceases? That's like the endless suffering, which is the Buddha's trip. But within that suffering, somehow within that like constant, within the yin yang, he found God, and then he began his dialogue with the divine that eventually led him back.
Yeah, that reminds me
to his home.
I lived in a meditation farm in Thailand once a couple years ago, probably like 6 years ago. That's where I had my first. That was the first time I had the idea for the farm that I'm in the middle of building. Like, hey, why don't we make a space like this that's accessible for everyone? So I'm there, and I was struggling really hard with just darkness. I was running away from myself in a big way, from a lot of things that I grew up with, a lot of trauma. And one day the guy that ran it, he was a monk who left the what do they call it?
Monastery,
because it was he decided he wants to be a monk in disguise. So he went, he got married, he has a baby, he runs this farm for tourists to come and volunteer and learn meditation and work with the earth. And he's like the biggest Baal Chesed ever, man. He feeds the whole village every morning. We get up, we make soup, we give it out to everyone in the village before they go to work. It's a trip. And so he told us one day, if you don't come over to me to talk to me, then it's just a shame. I have what to share with you. So I went over and I asked him, what do you do with dark thoughts? And he goes, no, tell me, what do I do with dark thoughts? And I was like, what do I do with dark thoughts? He's like, say it louder. You made me repeat that a bunch of times. And he goes, you just flip it. And I was like, what? Yeah, you just flip it. You know, every side there's a dark and there's a light. So, and he's telling me, and I'm like, oh my God, and, you know, I'm going through it. I'm feeling so horrible about everything. And he's just like, flip it. And I'm thinking, what? And then he just like, he kept saying it. And all of a sudden something clicked in me. Like, yeah, you just flip it. You find something good. And it talks about that in CBT as well, in DBT. If you ever like went into any of these like psychological therapies, they're all about finding a part of you that's not miserable, you know, because we have so many different streams going through us all the time. So even if we're miserable about something in our past, there's still a pretty flower right next to us. There's still something beautiful. We still woke up. We still have a bed, you know. Find something that you love, you know, flip it for a second. Look at the other side of things. And then he told me I have to go to the jungle for a couple of days because I feel everybody's energy and not even all of it's mine. So I should just go be alone for a little bit. And he sent me into the jungle, and I sat under a papaya tree for a while, a couple of days. And I ate papayas and sat with the plants and played some music, sang to myself and painted and read a book. And I came back and I felt a lot better. So that was good. And that's also a big lesson. Like, so we really do feel other people's energy a lot of the time, our conscious energy. So even if we're feeling really bad about something, especially let's say we're in, I think that's what happens to a lot of us that grow up in let's say in Lakewood. You know, you see kids and they're really suffering. They're really going through it. I really believe that they're special souls that just feel everybody's energy, and they're feeling it for everyone. You know, they're kind of like the.
You don't have to feel you don't have to feel everyone else's energy in Lakewood to be suffering.
Yeah, but like, you know, you see some people and they're fine, and there's some people that they're really not, and like
yeah, but it could just be, again, there's different personalities.
Yeah, but it's
why? Because one person is a. Yeah, but Avram has two children. He has Yishmael and Yitzchak, right? Mm-hmm. Right, and then Yitzchak has two children, Yaakov and Esav. Now Avram, who's like the endless giver, he lets everyone do whatever they want. He gives everyone ultimate space, right? So what happens? The kid who's a wild kid goes psycho, right? Yishmael. And the kid who's more restrained, the kid who is going to be Yitzchak and who's going to grow up to symbolize Gevura, right? To let himself be tied up as a carbon. For him, the endless freedom is amazing. Because I don't need to abuse it. He's not the abusing type, right? And then Yitzchak has two kids, Yaakov and Esav. Now Yitzchak is he's intense. Pachad Yitzchak, he's a scary guy, right? He's intense, right? So for Yaakov, for the person who is always telling the truth, right? That intensity it's not a problem. I always tell the truth anyways, right? For the person Esav who knows that his father won't accept him for who he is, he's not truthful with himself. He just lies to his father.
He's lying to himself.
So
too.
It's always right. Because he's lying to himself now. And his father won't accept him the way he is. He has to lie to his father. In other words, that's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, the person who's very truthful with himself can also be truthful with his father. Right. So it doesn't bother him that his father is so intense because there's nothing to be worried about. So even though we often grow up in the same community, in the same environment, in the same whatever, we really don't. Like everyone in Lakewood has their own house with their own family, with their own relationship to the Rebbe, right? With their own, with their own relationship to the school, with their own personality, we're all living in our totally own subjective worlds. Like we're not at all living in the same world. We could be living in the same house, in the same community, with the same school, and we're not living in the same world.
Yeah, you definitely have a
So
point.
one person's heaven can be another person's hell. If you like learning, if you're smart and you get good grades and learning is fun, then school is a freaking pleasure. And if you're not that bright and you have a hard time grasping concepts and maybe you're more visually oriented instead of audio or something like that, then it could just be a living hell. And you keep failing every test and you're trying as hard as you can. And some people, it's a walk in a park, and it's freaking amazing, and they're popular, and it's fun, and they're good at sports, and school is just, it builds them up. And for some people who aren't any of those things, school tears them down and tells them they have no self-value.
Yeah, that's definitely an aspect of it. But you find that everywhere in the world. That's not even like unique to like a religious community.
But people think there's like an objective truth to this community. And there might be, but no one's living in it. Everyone has their own subjective relationship. Right? There are some people who think I'm a nice guy, and there's some people who think I'm a total ass, and they're both right. Because to one person, they caught me on a good day maybe, and I was nice to them, and the other person maybe caught me in a bad mood, and I was an ass to them. Right? Mm-hmm. They're both like, or maybe the other way around. Maybe they were in a bad mood and I said something and they took it negatively, and the other person was in a good mood and I said something and they took it positively. Maybe it's not even me.
It's a lot of the journey to stop taking everything so personally, including the place you grew up in. You know, including the way the way you grew up. Like, you could take it personally. You could feel like it's personally out to get you, or you could just let it go and find your own way and your own truth.
It's definitely not personally out to get you, but I'm saying even the parts that you didn't like, let's say, those parts are showing you who you are. If you let them. Now, somebody gave you this warped image of you're supposed to be sitting in school all day, every day, learning, and like if you're not living up to that, then you're a failure, right? Now, I think for the people who can handle that, that's amazing. But for the people who can't,
instead of living on a hilltop.
So for the people who can handle that, and for people who they connect with that, that's amazing. But for the people who can't, the fact that it didn't work for you shows you that you're not that type of person. Not that you're a failure, that you're meant for something else. That's the flip it. Everything you're not good at maybe is everything you're not supposed to be doing. And everything you are good at is everything you are supposed to be doing.
Yeah, that's how we find our way in the world, in a way. Whether it comes from a negative way or a positive way, you're kind of forced to, you know? Because you get kicked out of yeshiva and then you have to go do something
Some people
else.
lock down everything they're good at. They lock it off because it's usser. You know what I'm saying? Let's say a kid in Lakewood is good with technology, right? Technology is usser gamer, right? What are you gonna do? You can't have a smart device. You can't have an internet. You can't have this.
You can do whatever you want. Let's be real.
Eventually, maybe when he's in his 30s, but by the time he's in his 30s and he's holding by making a parnassa, he never advanced his technological skills. He's a nobody now. Had he had a computer when he was a kid, he would be a top level hacker.
Man, yeah. So you're saying there's a problem with like opportunity?
Of course, there's a problem with opportunity because you only think that the only goal is one thing: sitting and learning Torah, whatever. If that's the only goal, then there's going to be a problem with opportunity.
Me use drill when I was a kid. All the tables I keep making would stop falling apart.
There you go. I met a kid once years ago who was in yeshiva, and we were talking about like what's your mission in life, and he told me like I totally know my mission. Like I'm gonna be whatever, I'm gonna become an askin and this and that, like very holy mission. He was like really cool. I'm like, so what are you still sitting in yeshiva for?
What do you mean?
But like no one would, if you know what your mission is in life, go start working towards your goals.
But if he's talking
about
being
still sitting here?
Isn't an askin like a rabbi?
No, you want it to be like a community, like, you know, get involved, like doing chesed and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, what does he do? Like,
you gotta
start from somewhere. My cousin always
But no one will tell you that.
My cousin always tells me. My cousin started the Special Children's Center when she was 16. She's like one of my biggest role models. And a bunch of people in my family. That's why I work with special needs people. It's like in my genes. It's like my grandma. She started it because my grandmother adopted an autistic baby who was my uncle. He calls me all the time. He's the best. So and then my cousin saw that no one like in Lakewood has help with like special needs kids. So they started her and Janine Schwecki started the Special Children's Center when they're 16 in the basement, Thursday afternoon, like babysitter program. And now it's huge. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but like they're
Yeah,
all over. They're
yeah,
all over
yeah.
Brooklyn. They're all over Deal. They're opening up all in a bunch of states. They have so many programs going on. Like I can't even count
It's
them.
amazing.
So she always tells me, you got to just start. Got to start. You want to do something good in the world, so do something good. That's what you do. You start by doing it, and then the rest shows up. And that's what I like. I try to listen to her. That's when I started my farm program. The first thing I did was invite all the people I ever worked with here in the north to come and plant trees with me. And we all planted trees. All the students that I used to teach art and teach yoga and all this, they all came. We all planted trees, and all the trees on my farm are planted by people with special needs from the area.
Wow.
So it's like that's kind of how you do anything in life. You got to just start from somewhere, because that's how you get to the next level. If you think it's not gonna, and it's like that in business as well. Like I'm trying to scale my natural product business, and I always thought, oh, okay, so I'm gonna open up a factory. But there's a bunch of steps. Done for a half a year isn't what I'm really going to use. At least I put the energy in there. You got to put the energy
Right.
into your goal, because then it gets there, and then it kind of falls into place. Because if it's supposed to be, it's going to be. That's what we need to remember. Like if the more you trust
Yeah,
in
but you
your
also need to work
mission
for
and
it.
what you want to do, the more it's able to come into place. What did you just say?
Yeah, but you also need to work at it. You also need to work
Yeah.
at it.
Yeah, but if you
Right.
don't believe in what you're doing, you can't work at it, because you're like, oh, I'm just wasting time.
Some people don't really connect to something, or they don't really believe in something, and they're stuck doing it anyways because everyone else told them this is what you're really supposed to be doing deep down, and they want to do what they're doing. But the reality is, if you don't want it, that's okay.
Yeah.
Like you just don't want it. And obviously, if you do want it, you can accomplish anything. But you have to get in touch with what you actually want. And the idea of like, I'm going to do something because everyone else wants me to do it, you won't have, unlikely you'll have a lot of success.
Yeah, and it's kind of a tragedy that people live their life not doing what they want. Because I think in a way, our mission in life kind of gets shown to us sometimes in things that are what we want. Things that you feel passionate about. Things that it's definitely doesn't mean that there's no challenge in it, but and I think that we have a lot of work to do as well. But there's a part of us that like our tafkid in life is to do things that, like, if something comes easy to you that's not easy to other people, that maybe that's your mission, And if something's really hard for you, you gotta like check into that. Like, wait, is that really for you? Like, you know if you're being a cop out or if you're doing what's right for you. You know that we have the knowledge inside of us. So if a society is making you feel like a cop out, that's a whole nother problem that like gets us off our balance. And if a society doesn't support you in doing what you should be doing, then that's a hard place to be in. It's like not supportive of our being.
Yeah. In Kabbalah, the highest sphira, the highest like
We have it right there.
Okay, so what's the highest one?
Keter. I don't know why I had to
Okay,
look into that.
what is Keter equivalent to? As far as
Crown chakra?
mental No, as far as
Oh.
like mental like psychoanalysis, I guess, for lack of a better term.
I don't know, because to my knowledge, Keter is like something that's a little bit above us. It's like our connection to spirituality.
Keter is Ratzon,
Voila. Interesting.
what we want, because we don't really know why
Cool.
we want what we want. We just want it.
That's so
And then we use
interesting.
our mind to get what we want.
That's cool. Yeah, so you got to know what you want. That's the first way. I was just talking to someone the other day. They were trying to figure out what to do. They have a job offer. They don't know if they should leave their other job. They don't know if they go to this new job. Some of it, Naim, are better. Some of them are worse. They did not know what to do with themselves. They said, dude, man, you got to know what you want. Go sit down with yourself and write down what you want. Remember your purpose. You have to remember your purpose. Whenever you're like, oh, remember your purpose. And if you don't know what your purpose is, you got to go look for that, because
You know why you don't know
that's a big one.
what your purpose is?
Why?
Because you don't know who you are.
Yeah. Gotta go find yourself too.
It's Alan Watts. Alan Watts says there's two reasons why you don't know what you want. Right? One is you don't know who you are. Two is you already have it.
That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, that's a big one because like every once in a while I'll like catch myself being miserable and I'm like, wait, why am I so miserable right now? I have the life of my dreams. I'm literally living it right now. Look at this. Look around me. I'm living it. What am I sad about? Like remember what's going on here. Be grateful. That's a big part of life. By the way, I just want to make like a little announcement for anyone that has ADHD and has a hard time focusing. Best trick of life is getting a big bouncy ball and using it instead of a chair. That's all. That's end of my announcement. If you're wondering why I'm bouncing, it's because I have ADHD and I have a bouncy ball. I don't have any chairs in my house, just a bouncy ball.
Yeah, you also have the thing to sit on the floor, no? The little like.
Yeah, this is like my desk chair.
Got you.
That's not a floor. That's not a chair. The mattress is on the floor. That's like that's the vibe.
Right. Now the thing is, even with this idea of like, focus on things you enjoy and what you're good at, doesn't mean you shouldn't push yourself. Like in that field, you should struggle on a certain level. You want to you want to have some accomplishment. Right.
Mhm. We always have. It doesn't mean that life's easy because you're doing what you like. Like, I'm building a farm. That's my biggest dream. There's nothing easy about it. I have no idea what I'm doing. And every day I get there and I go, oh my God. Like, I still don't get to the part where I sit there and I go, I should just do that and then I'll be at that part. But it's hard. Life's hard. It doesn't mean it's easy just because you're doing what you feel is your purpose. You got to be brave. You got to be like, I'm going to do this because this is what's right. Go warrior for your light.
Right. But if you're doing something that you enjoy doing, that, something you believe in, something you enjoy doing, then it's still kind of like flows, almost like from a Zen state, Like,
for sure.
The Torah actually, when the Torah talks about Shabbos,
Yeah.
So it says, Sheishis Yamim, right? Tasa Malacha, 6 days you should do work, right? V'yom hashvi Shabbos, right? And the seventh day you rest. Now, sometimes it says Ta'aseh, but sometimes it says Te'aseh. And what Te'aseh means is that work should get done. Not that you do it, but the work gets done. And whenever it says like Shabbos Shabboson, like for Shemitah, like where we are right now and stuff like that, whenever it's like a real Shabbos, like the Shabbos, right? It says Te'aseh. Because like, I'm assuming also the Mashiach times, Kilu, probably we have technology that does all the work for us. And a lot of people already are living in that world, kind of, where, instead of going outside and having to like water all your plants and this, you just hook up like an automatic water cycle hose and like you're done. So the work got done. Like te'aseh malacha, like the malacha has to get done. And I think it can also be like for an individual as a mindset. Like sometimes like you're driving somewhere and like the next thing you know, you're kind of there and you weren't in that like headspace of like, oh, I'm driving now, like I'm on. It was like so chilled, so zen, and like it was a great chill, great drive, and like next thing you know, you're there. And that I think is like the bechina, like the concept of like of te'aseh malacha, that the work has to get done, but you don't have to struggle really through it. Obviously, it's work. I'm not saying it's not work; it's hard work. You get home, you're exhausted, but like with a smile on your face.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like healing, when you decide you're going to heal yourself. Like you go into some kind of Zen space. You get some kind of like your angels are there with you. It's still hard. You still have to do the work, but like
right.
You get this like extra glow every once in a while after a therapy session or after taking care of yourself or after, just being there for yourself with whatever is going on inside of you that has to release.
Yeah.
It's
well,
like
some people have this illusion of drugs that it's just like no work, like all play,
What drugs? What do you mean by drugs?
Drugs. Mind-altering substances.
You mean psychedelic medicine?
I mean psychedelic medicine. Yes, that's exactly what I mean.
Cool.
Mind-altering.
Different than drugs. Yeah,
Um,
definitely. Yeah. Like when I went down to South America, I was there for a month, and I sat with ayahuasca a
it's not
lot of
different, by the way. It's
times.
different framing. It's not different.
Nah, drugs is like those nasty little pills that Big Pharma tries to sell you so you could be
A
sick
lot of
forever and
people
ever and ever.
call other things drugs. That way they can arrest you and put you in jail.
That
Um,
is true. We're not the police, are we? But yeah, like you sit there and you're like, some people would think like, oh, you're just going to flip out. No, you're there to do work. When you sit, but it has to do with how mindfully you are. I think that has to do with it also. You have to come in with a purpose. You have to come in like with a reason, and don't forget it. And you have to sit in a proper setting. It's not just like stam. You can't just like be like, oh, I'm just gonna drink some ayahuasca today. Like I hear people do that. That's dangerous. You have to like be in a good space. There's different things and for different times, and obviously some things you can sit by yourself in nature, and some things you should sit with a shaman or somebody that's trained. But
depending on the
it's so much
meditation,
work, and it's
depending
not
on
even
the
fun sometimes. Sometimes you're just like, oh my god, you get to see all the hell inside of you. Like, yay, so exciting. But then you finish because you feel good after because you did the work. You know, you purged whatever you had to purge. You got to see some magic inside of you. You got to, and then there's integration. Integration's like the biggest thing. We integrate for the rest of our life, honestly, and that's like that's the most important part of sitting with medicine is learning how to integrate it into your everyday life. Is to remember all the things that you learned, not just to like I don't know, because you could go back to life and just forget about it, and then you're back in your old patterns. And integrations, medicine is it could be a metaphor for anything, for therapy, for any experience you go through. You could learn from it or you cannot. But once you integrate it in your life, that's when you know you did the work because you're taking what you learned. You found this place in your mind that I remember at one point I was sitting there and I had all these like those voices in our head that are always criticizing us and like but like not in a good way. There's like the constructive criticism and there's the part of you that's just like shitting on yourself and I'm like way deep in there and all of a sudden I go, who hired y'all? And I'm like, you are all fired. And I just went in there and I'm like, you're fired. Whoever's telling me I'm not good, you're fired. You don't work for me. I fired you. That's it. And then like oh that was cool, that was a really cool moment of like psh, I don't need to listen to these voices that are stopping me from fulfilling my potential. But then you go back to life and then sometimes they come back and you have to remember to be like, wait, who are you guys? I didn't hire you. You're fired. And you fire them again. You got to keep doing it. It's not like a one-time thing. It's a lesson that you get. But you got to keep doing the work. And what about Kabbalah?
So one of the things in the story of Egypt, the story of Mitzrayim, is that Yosef made everyone promise him that when they leave, they would take his bones with him. Right?
Mm.
And one of the concepts in Kabbalah is that's the idea of incorporation. Of whatever we learned from Mitzrayim, whatever Mitzrayim showed us, whatever Yosef extracted, whatever wisdom was garnished. The Vilna Gaon says this, like that's the idea of the Atzmos Yosef is you got to bring it with you up to the higher state of consciousness, up to like Eretz Yisrael. You got to take whatever you learned from Gullus and flip it.
Uh-huh.
See, that's the flip. And if you don't flip it, then it stays overturned, and then there was no point in ever going through it.
Yeah.
And that's the word. And then there's no
Exactly.
tikkun. The Vilna Gaon says that the word pesha, which is sin, right? If you rearrange the letters, it spells shefa.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Pesha
sometimes
means sin. It's not like crime.
I mean it's the same thing but in like biblical Hebrew, right? No say
Okay.
avon v'pesha. He carries our iniquity
Yeah.
and our sin, right? Um, so, but it's the same shorish. Like the crime is a sin. That's in theory. It's supposed to be, but then they started criminalizing psychedelic medicine, which is not a sin. It's a mitzvah. So it got messy. Olam
Who
hafach.
says it's a
But
mitzvah? Where's your
I'm saying it's a
source?
mitzvah.
Okay, cool. It's a good source.
Um,
I'm up with that
if you're
source.
ready for it. If you're not ready for it and you're not, then it's not for you. It's right. You need
Yeah,
to have a kli to be makabel the oros. Otherwise, it's
mamash,
bechinas mitzvah
mamash.
chazar levatala.
Kind of
Anyhow,
like love, you know. You have to have a cleat to hold love, or else like it's just kind of like that's how you could get into like unhealthy relationships or unhealthy habits or any kind of addiction. Even like you're like, oh, I love this so much, or I love this person so much, but if you don't have this space in you that's able to hold the love and turn it into a higher energy, make it holy, then it kind of just like, and then you go and then that's it, because like we kind of make a malach every time we like make a connection. Every connection is like a new angel. So if this angel, like if you think about it this way, and the angel has nowhere to go, that's like you gotta have like a home for it, make a space.
did I tell you what I realized with some of the medicine?
No, well, maybe.
Every time you do a mitzvah, you create an angel, and that angel is you.
Oh, I really like that. Oh, that's really nice. Yeah. Yeah, it's like you literally yesterday I was talking to a teacher of mine, and I'm about to go travel, and I was telling him, oh yeah, I'm all nervous. I always get so nervous before I travel. And he goes, Rachelli, what are you talking about? Everything is one. You know that. I've seen you know that. You just step in there. Everything is one. You are all one. Everything will be okay. There's nothing to be nervous about. And it's like the same. It's like all these different concepts that we have in the world, and any regrets or any wishes or anything, it's all part of us right now. So like you feel a light, that light is you. And if you feel like, oh, I should have done something, then you put that intention right now. Oh, let me send the energy out for that right now. That's something that came to me once in a medicine session where I was sitting there and I was thinking, oh, I should really pray about this, or oh, I should, I don't know, I wish I was a little nicer to that person, sent better energy out. And then I said, wait, I'm here right now. Let me just do that right now. Like, what's this? I wish. Instead of saying I wish, you just do that right then, Oh, I'm praying for this right now. Oh, I'm sending good energy to that person because I feel bad that I didn't. That's it. It's all one. We are, every moment is like the same at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, the Arizal actually goes into that concept, also the concept of creating angels, like Reb Chaim Vital talks about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because basically my understanding is they say that when you're talking to an angel, you're really talking to one of the angels that you created. So you're really talking to like this concept that you got in touch with, that you embodied, that you created, that you enacted in the world. And also depending on how well you did that, depends on what level that angel is and whether or not, sometimes you have angels that are actually mixed good and bad. Chaim Vital says like angels can lie to you. And that's like the craziest thing like we were talking about before about people who basically the angels don't always know the answers either. It's about the people who sometimes do the wrong thing, but they're very these false gurus and stuff like that. Like maybe they really are in touch with angels and their angels are lying to them.
Yeah. I don't think people are trying to be bad. I think they just didn't do all the work that they needed to do. They're not being all the way
right.
Open with
their
themselves.
Angels aren't perfect.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like pendulums. So I use pendulums a lot, and I actually sell them too. And it's a really good tool for understanding a question that you have. But people think sometimes, oh, it's magic. Oh, it's the crystal's talking to you, or or they won't believe in it because of that. But the truth about it is that it's a vibration that's coming from inside you. So if you're not clear on something and you're looking for the answer is coming from inside of you. It's your vibration that's changing with the answer and giving you what you need to know. So it's like it's all here within us.
Wow, yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's also how I understand like a certain story in I think it's Gemara Menachos that says that when Moshe Rabbeinu went up to heaven when he was going to give the Torah, right? So he saw God adding little ksarim. He saw God adding like the crowns to the letters, right? In the Torah, in like actual calligraphy, in like Ksav, the letters have the little like chipchiks on top. You know what I'm talking about? The little
Yeah.
like a line with like a little circle. So Moshe Rabbeinu asked God, like, what's lacking that you have to like add these things? Like, why are you adding these little crowns to the top of letters? And God's like, there's going to come a day when this rabbi named Rabbi Akiva ben Yosef is going to come, Rabbi Akiva, and he's going to learn out another halacha from each one of these little crowns. And Moshe Rabbeinu was like, I want to see him. So God said, go sit down in the back row, right? And they he like watched Rabbi Akiva teaching Torah. And it says Moshe Rabbeinu became like a little, he like became a little like uneasy, like despair. He's like, why am I giving the Torah? Like, look at this rabbi. Like, he should be giving the Torah in my place. Like, what do I know? Right? Until one of his students, Rabbi Akiva's students, asked him, like, how do we know that halacha? And he said, it's a halacha l'Moshe Misinai. We have it transmitted all the way back from Moshe Rabbeinu himself. And then, like, Moshe Rabbeinu's confidence was, like, restored. And he's like, okay, it's, like, because of what I give over, that the tradition builds, that now Rabbi Akiva has the capability of, like, looking in his own head and extracting these concepts from the Torah. But, again, these were concepts, like, Moshe Rabbeinu, when he wrote it, didn't know. And Rabbi Akiva really extracted them from his own mind. But he read them into each keser. And in the Kabbalah, some people say there's a specific meditation, like a meditation on the crowns of letters in order to glean information from them. Like they talk to you, Kilo.
Wow.
But really you talk to yourself.
Yeah, we're all kind of part of the same soul family too. You know, maybe they're the same person.
Who?
Moshe and Rabbi Akiva. Like, you never know.
Yeah, I think I've heard that
People
before.
say that. Cool.
I think so, yeah.
Wow, what a beautiful conversation. And I want to just take a moment to like make a prayer for all the people in the world, and especially the ones from the places where we come from, to be able to find the peace within themselves, to find their purpose and find the meaning in their life, and find out who they are so they can really live life in the truest way, and bring down their own special lights to the world. Because we need them.
Amen.
We need you all. We need everyone to find their truth.
Amen.
That's how we make a better world.
Do you want to talk a little bit also, just before you go, about what you're doing with the farm, and if anyone wants to help or volunteer, how they can get in touch with you, and
Sure.
what the mission is?
So I founded a farm called Shivat Emanim Farm. It is a space for people of all abilities to come and enjoy nature and learn about natural healing and healthy living. And the goal of this space is to become an employment center, as well as a teaching center, like a learning center for people for these topics. But more important for that is the employment will be specifically for people with disabilities and special needs, to give them opportunities that they don't have in the current system in Israel, especially for the people that are under the care of the government. I worked in the system for a few years here in Israel, and very sad to say that it's very much lacking humanity in it, very lacking in quality of life for people with disabilities. Reminds me a lot of a jail, to be honest, and all because someone is not functioning in the way society thinks people need to function. But I grew up with the knowledge of that we all have special abilities, and if you can't see, even if you can't see the way people have abilities, sometimes they're in a different higher way and a different spiritual way. So I think it's very important and it's my honor to work with people with special needs that I very much believe have a higher consciousness than us, and holding space in a big way for all of us. And I would like to help create a more healing space and lifestyle for people here in Israel and around the world, and awareness and inclusiveness. So that's what this project is about. It is currently located in Yavniel. I'm building a model eco farm, handicap accessible eco farm that will hopefully get funding in the near future to open this employment center. And until now, everything's been getting built and planted by volunteers with special needs and with all kinds of abilities, and so much love and light. And I want to invite everybody. You're all welcome to come and volunteer on the farm and bring your light and your energy, because it is needed and is blessed. You can all reach me on Instagram, on Facebook. It's called Shivat Haminim Farm. On Instagram, it's shivat.haminim.farm. On Facebook, it's just written like that. And any donations, any volunteers, anything is welcome. Any energy someone feels called to put into this project is very much blessed and welcome. And this is just the first of a big vision of creating a higher quality and more healthy life for people with special needs within the ecological and spiritual community. This is just the first project. We want to make group homes, healthy living group homes that are within communities. We want to create inclusive lifestyles and just a higher quality lifespan for people that are under the care of the socialist system that we are part of. Because if we believe that we care for people with disabilities, then we should really care for them, not just put them on the side in a group home and be like, okay, there you go do like that in some factory all day. That's just like, doesn't respect the life, I think, and these holy souls. And so I'm here to create change, and I'd love for y'all to come along for the journey and follow on Instagram and Facebook, because that helps too. And yeah, that's all about that for now. Thanks for the moment to speak about that. I appreciate it. Yitzy was there on a bunch of special times. You came up that day after we all planted the trees. That was like the most exciting day of my life. Felt like everything was coming together. It was so cool. We had a day where we planted trees at the special needs college.
Fun show.
So cool. Baruch Hashem.
All right. Well, I look forward to coming back again and visiting.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and we'll be in touch until next time.
Yeah, so nice to talk with you, Yitzy. Big blessings.